people who are in the same business as you that you view as competitors are actually your best collaborators. At times, it's this fear of being told no. Let them tell you no. Ask for help. Don't say no to yourself before you even get the opportunity to ask. Just ask for help. Don't do it by yourself. There's enough of us trying to do it, and I'm telling you, it doesn't work. I'm telling you from experience of having burnt out. It doesn't work. Ask for help. The number one person I never have to prove anything to is myself. I don't have to convince me that I'm good enough. I don't have to convince me that I'm the right person for the job, right? There's freedom in that. There's freedom in not having to do that, not having to constantly make space for yourself, sort of validate your value. So yeah, freedom is a big word, but it means more than just people. Again, I say freedom and sometimes people think financial freedom, but it's a lot more than that. The financial freedom is part of it, but it's also freedom in these other aspects as well.
Welcome to Begin, Build, Blossom Your Business Journey, the podcast where we share valuable insights, resources, and motivation to fuel your entrepreneurial spirit. Let's build a supportive community together. Don't forget to subscribe or follow wherever you listen to podcasts and be part of this journey. Let's pause for a moment to hear from our sponsors. You've built a name for yourself through hard work and dedication, but does managing the business side feel like a distraction from your true passion? Are you dealing with unmanaged finances? CME Accounting LLC is here to help. We specialize in organizing your financial records, allowing you to focus on what you do best. With organized books, you'll have more time for what inspires you. Whether that's expanding your influence, building relationships, or simply enjoying life. Don't let unmanaged finances hold you back. Reach out to CME Accounting LLC today and let us help you thrive. Visit our website www.cmeaccountingllc.com or email us at admin@cmeaccountingllc.com. All right, let's jump back into our conversation. Good day and welcome to another episode of our podcast, Begin, Build, Blossom Your Business Journey. Today we have with us Christina Bryan. Christina helps women and their businesses create the structure they need to thrive. With experience spanning Fortune 500 brands, 3 startup launches, and over a decade of executive leadership, she blends creativity, strategy, and people-centered insight to drive growth. Through her consulting business, The Roadmap Coach, she's helping women turn big ideas into actionable plans. Welcome, Christina. How are you doing?
Hey, Clarita, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to chat today.
Yes, same here. And Christina, we met through a mutual friend. Well, she's your cousin, and she's also been a guest on this show. And I'm so glad that she made that connection and that we've continued to get to know each other better.
I am too. We've done some fun things together since our introduction. So this was definitely an
Yes.
introduction that was in the making.
Yes. For instance, I got to attend an event that you had in the city, an amazing event for women to just connect, get to know each other. And so much has happened since then, including us going to a TEDx together.
That's exactly right. And you know what's funny? I got an event invitation yesterday from someone who had attended that event. And lo and behold, they're co-hosting it with someone else that they met that night at my event. So there's been a ton of collaboration.
That's amazing.
I know. And I'm obviously going to attend because I want to support, but there's been such collaboration. And I think this is a thing that women can certainly do more of, right? It's the social events. It's the handshakes that lead to opportunity. Yes, having friends is great, but a lot of the ways that I think men are great about building their community is it's almost expected that when they make an introduction, there's going to be a business deal that comes out of it. Whereas with women, we're a little nicer about it, right? And so it's not always as obvious.
Yes.
I'm really excited to see that collaboration.
Yes. And oh my gosh, I am so excited as well. And we will be working on some things together too. So I am so excited. I'm so glad I met you, Christina.
Same, Clarita.
Yes, and our audience, they're getting to meet you today. So let's start by getting to know you a little better before we talk about the business side of things. So if you can give us 2 words, one that describes you now and one you would have used to describe yourself as a child.
Yeah, for sure. And they're kind of related. So how I would choose to describe myself now is fun. Like if we're in a meeting together, whether it's a strategy brain dump, whether it's a facilitated training for your team, we're going to laugh. There's going to be laughter. There's going to be jokes. Like, we're going to have some of that. I don't know how to do anything seriously. There's got to be a dose of unseriousness to it. And I would say the word that describes me as a child is the sort of younger derivative of that, which is silly. I was a silly kid. Like, I put on plays and shows, and most of which were, sort of comedy centric. And it's funny because in high school, I was actually voted most likely to make you spill milk out of your nose. So I'm not surprised. Like, this is what I was born to do, was to make people laugh.
Oh my gosh, you said silly, and you just reminded me of my daughter because she is silly.
Yeah, isn't that so great to see? Like, just this unfiltered silliness of just like, I'm going to be myself and I hope that, it makes you laugh sort of thing. I love to see that in kids.
Yes,
Yeah, I
yes,
do.
and just to have fun in life, and to see that you're grown now and you've fun. That's great. I love it, Christina.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. It's something that I've held on to also. I think a dose of silliness is just a part of my brand.
Great. And now that we're talking about fun, maybe you can tell us a fun fact people probably don't know about you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, a fun fact. I love playing the piano. I actually took piano lessons for 7 years, and I love binge watching TV. That's honestly my favorite way to just detach, unplug, not think about the world, not problem solve. Just like give me some really good ratchet TV.
I can relate. And what's a favorite childhood memory that brings a smile to your face?
I would probably say I've always wanted to be a restaurateur as a kid. Not something I don't think I would do as an adult, not a business I don't think I would go into. But when I was a kid, my core memory, and I did this multiple times, I would open a restaurant in my mom's kitchen. So I would set the table, get a separate table in case more than one, guest arrived. I would have a menu that I designed. I'd have pricing, of course, with it. Okay. Even though I didn't buy the groceries, my mother did, I would still sell the actual meal. That's how I made my money for the summer. And yeah, I remember this just very young, very early need to like make my own money.
I love that. And you talked about liking to just binge watch stuff. So what's a book or a movie that you would recommend?
So I wouldn't necessarily recommend movies. Movies require that I stay awake the entire time. That's a little harder. The shows are easier, because the episodes are smaller. I would probably say my recommendation in terms of a book is one that actually helped me think about networking differently, think about relationship building differently. It's called Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi. It was recommended to me maybe 15 years ago by a colleague. I read it, fell in love with it then, and it sort of became my framework for how to develop a network, how to develop a community, and how to build social equity. Because I think post-COVID, a lot of folks can use some help on how to build social equity with people.
And you're doing a mighty fine job. I
Thank
love the
you.
way you network.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, and again, it just comes from making friends, right? And being social, which is something that's not too hard for me.
All right. And since you've been in business, what's one of the best moments that you've had so far?
Oh, man. I would probably say my best moment so far was working with a client who is a teacher, and being a teacher, living on a teacher's salary. I don't need to tell you how hard that is nowadays, right? And so she had a side hustle where she was bringing in additional income. And she had a good problem, which was that her side hustle started to pick up in demand, and she wanted to be a bit more organized and streamline how that demand was coming in to really maximize on it. Because I think she was losing out on opportunities just because of the sheer volume and not having a system to take in some of those orders, right, and be able to deliver and execute on them. And so we did something really easy, really simple. We had like a quick 90-day like strategy sprint, and I followed up with her a few months later, and to get the actual data of the difference we were able to make with that one session, seeing her profit margin increase by 30%, seeing her not having to work until 1 a.m. after coming home from a school day and then having to work on her side business, right? Like seeing her feel a lot more confident making business decisions as a CEO versus as I'm just a side hustler. I'm really a teacher. Right? So just seeing that transformation in her for me was really impactful. It told me I'm in the right place.
Wow. Nice. And then I could see in one session there was a mindset shift. There was systems put in place, and there are tangible results. That's amazing.
It didn't all happen in the 90 minutes, but what I would say in that 90 minutes, we were able to put the foundation down for what would become her roadmap. Because a lot of times you just need a plan.
That's
You need
great.
someone to tell you what to do, when to do it, and what are the steps to doing it. And so I think in her case, she's a very like mover shaker. If you just show her the plan, she can execute it really well. And so I think that's why, and she was ready to make change, right? So I think her willingness and ambition met the sort of strategic end of business and having a plan. I think those two things combined is what set her up for success. So after the 90-day session, we were able to put that plan to paper, handed it to her. She executed it beautifully with my support throughout the way. 6 months later, I was honestly really, really happy to see the person that came out on the other side of that.
Oh, that's great. Wow. I want to hear more about how you do this. But before we get into it, maybe if you can tell us one not so good moment that you've had, on the flip side of that.
Oh yeah, I've experienced business failure. So the Roadmap Coach is actually my third business. I've had two other businesses before, and honestly, it's absolutely the foundation that helped me build the Roadmap Coach the way that I did, with intention, not from a place of scarcity, with a game plan, with a very clear why, right? And I think that piece was absolutely missing for me the first time around. Why am I doing this? Like, why does this matter? Why can't I just like do something else? Why this specifically? And so I think the hardest moment was going through the period of post business failing, what that felt like, how I showed up in the world, because I definitely showed up with a big L on my chest, right? After that. And you don't realize how much that has an effect on your next step, right? How much it has an effect on the people that you meet, the conversations that you have that come after that moment. And so that was a really tough time for me. Very, very tough time.
Thanks for sharing that with us. And that takes us nicely to the begin segment because where you are right now in business, it sounds like it's a progression and a little bit of a pivot from where you were before, what you call the failures. So, can you tell us how you transition from there to and what you do now as well?
Yeah, absolutely. The transition took a few years. So there were about, I want to say, two career pivots in between, where for me the goal after my businesses failed was to just go back and get a full-time job. I was really burnt out of entrepreneurship. Folks who run businesses, you know what that feels like. You are everything. You're the HR person, you're the marketing person, you're the onboarding person for your clients. And I wanted a bit of a break from that. I wanted to be able to really specifically test myself, right? So I had been in the event industry, hospitality industry for most of my career, and there's a lot of skill set, a lot of lived experience that I picked up on, and I wanted to see whether or not that was transferable to a different market. And so that period of transition was me honestly sharpening my tools I had already sort of acquired throughout my years as an entrepreneur, but I was sharpening those tools in other industries to really test out and see, could my framework, could my approach, could my solutions work in a completely different industry? And I was happy to see that it did. And so in sort of gaining the confidence I needed again, right? In terms of like, I'm not the problem. I just need to refine what I do and the problems that I solve. And once I was able to kind of get that underway, I was then able to create a business plan for the Roadmap Coach, which is in essence helping business owners get out of their backend so that they can actually focus on growth and vision. Because once you've experienced a certain level of success in your business, you've got clients coming in, you've got revenue, there's that period of time where the things you were doing will no longer serve where you're going. So you really have to have that intentional pause to shift, not just your mentality, but your team, your systems. Like the back end has to match the front end. That's my sweet spot. That's where I live. And that's what I really enjoy doing.
And a question is coming up for me here. When you decided to go back full time, though, I know you said there's a certain level of success when you've experienced that. I mean, probably there's no turning back. But you had that moment where did you actually go back into full time, and why didn't you stay there? What made you go into business again? You covered it a little bit just now, but I just want to dig into that a little bit more.
I just wasn't solving the kind of problems I wanted to solve, right? And I think that became clear eventually. Again, the goal for me in going back to work changed. Initially, it was, I need to put food on the table. I need to bring in revenue. I need to pay off the debt I just incurred from this company, dissolving like that. It was a fight, right? The debt. There was a financial need. Once I was more comfortable financially, right? And things didn't feel so tight. I was able to build up a savings again. I was able to pay off my debt, right? So once it didn't feel as strained, then the goal became, let's sharpen those tools. Let's ask for projects that are going to stretch me. Let's do things that are hard. Let's learn new things. Let's experience new things and see what happens with my skill set. Does it stay the same? Does it get better? Right. And then once that happened, my goal was, what kind of problems do I really want to solve? Is this where I want to be? Do I feel fulfilled? Do I feel like I'm actually working day to day, day in and day out on the things that I really enjoy? Not everybody gets that privilege. And honestly, even as the roadmap coach, in working with my ideal clients, not every day is a great day. That's just life, right? But I think for me, I pivoted to the nonprofit industry because I really wanted to be closer to the impact. I wanted to have an actual hand in seeing the world be a better place. And for me, my coaching business, my consulting business just felt like I could actually tangibly see those changes happening versus working at a nonprofit where really my role was sort of supporting the people who are doing the work. I wasn't actually doing the work.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. So let's go back just a little bit. And if you can just tell us, do you remember the very first time you thought about actually starting a business? So I know you said that you played, you role played as a child in one sector, the restaurant business, and you've seen this is your third business. So when you look back, can you just remember that moment that really spoke to you that, I want to be an entrepreneur?
I know that moment exactly. I know exactly when it happened. I was a senior in college. I went to Temple University, so I was in Philly. And honestly, the goal was for me to go to law school. I knew that that was the plan. I had taken the LSAT. I was going to go to Tulane, which is my sister's alma mater. My sister's a lawyer. And I was going to go to Tulane Law School. And I wasn't excited about it, right? Something about it just didn't feel like it was the right plan for me. But I'm Haitian. So your options are doctor, lawyer, nurse, engineer. Okay? Like those are your career options. And I really didn't want any of them. But the lawyer one seemed more feasible, right? In terms of my skill set, my interests, etc. And so I graduated and Katrina happened that summer. And so my acceptance was deferred and I was on a wait list. And it was going to give me a year to basically either take courses in New York and then try to transfer those credits the following year, or take the year off, try something completely different. And then law school will always be waiting a year later. And so I decided to take that opportunity on. And I said, well, if I were to just close my eyes and pick any career in the world, where do I want to do an internship at? Like, where do I want to start? And I thought to myself, I want to be an event planner. And I think eventually I want to own my own event planning business. That's my goal. And so with that goal in mind, I started searching for my very first job, for my very first internship, knowing that I would not be there forever and that my goal was to start my own business. It took 4 different employers, 4 jobs before I actually launched my first big business in 2013. And I graduated college. And yes, I'm going to date myself because I am not ashamed of my age, in 2005. So it took me 8 years to get the discipline, to get the knowledge, to get the know-how, to understand the industry, to understand collaboration and all of those things, and then launch my business 8 years later.
Let's talk a little bit more about the business. So if you tell us, I think we've gotten a sense of what you do, but just let us know the name and who you serve in your business.
The business now.
Yes, the business now.
Okay, yeah, for sure. So the business now is the roadmap coach. And as I said, my superpower is operational streamlining. Not just that, I also, when I first launched the roadmap coach 2 years ago, so I've been unofficially coaching for about 8 years, officially launched the roadmap coach 2 years ago. And what I used to do before was I would provide one-on-one coaching to the owner of the business, or I would provide business coaching for the business itself, right? So what's the challenge the business is experiencing? What's keeping the owner, the founder, from reaching their goals? Like, what's the bottleneck, right? We sort of diagnose that. We create a roadmap, and then their team executes, or they execute. What wasn't working for me is, again, I'm huge on impact. I want to know, like, yes, we're all trying to make money, sure. But I also need to know that what we worked on is not only being implemented, but it's helping. You're actually seeing your business grow. You're seeing more revenue. You're retaining more clients. You're retaining your team. Your team is happy. You have a healthy culture. Like, that is more important to me than anything else. And so what I was finding is, in the one-on-one coaching, it wasn't enough time once a week for 45 minutes to diagnose a problem, together collaborate on a solution, and then create a sort of execution plan on how you're going to implement that solution. That was almost impossible to do in a 45-minute coaching session on a weekly basis, right? And for some of my clients who are running companies, 1 week, so much would happen. And then we would waste so much of the coaching session on updates, right? On the other end, when I would do just business consulting, go in, diagnose the problem, work through a solution, sometimes partner with them to implement it, sometimes hand them the roadmap so they can implement it. In either of those cases, I would circle back 6 months later, again, because impact is important to me. And the plan was collecting dust. Or we had implemented a system, but it was just hard to get buy-in from everyone else, so people just stopped, right? That bothered me. Because I knew that there was potential, right? If they had just either stuck to it or created an iteration of the plan that worked for them. So what I do singularly different from, I think, other coaches is there is the one-on-one coaching aspect, and I'm also with you implementing. Now, we do that at different levels, depending on where you are in your business, depending on what your budget is, right? It could be a DIY, it could be a done with you, it could be a done for you, right? So it all depends on where you want me to sit in your business. On any of those levels, it's about getting you out of the back end, streamlining it, ensuring that your team, if you don't have a team, let's say you're a solopreneur, ensuring that you are doing as much as you can, maximizing your potential with very little labor, with very little staff, with very little people.
I really love that. And while you were talking, I was thinking through it. It sounds like it was one-on-one coaching that was not as impactful as you'd have liked. Then on the consulting side, they get something at the end and they probably won't follow through.
Yeah, or they do it and then they abandon it 30 days later. Yeah.
Right. But then you saw a way to bring all of that together.
Yes. Far more effective.
Yeah. And when you say more effective, what are like some examples you can give us of how this works better than what you were doing before, what maybe most coaches do?
The first thing is together, me and the client identify what level is their business in and what level of support do they need. Because what I need to do is to be able to meet them where they're at. I don't want to offer a one size fits all package, right? I want to be able to offer the support at the level where you need it and at the level where you can afford it, right? So all about is about meeting you where you're at. And so for me, the initial conversation is yes, about diagnosing the challenge. And again, assessing what level is your business in and what level of support do you need, right? The level of support sometimes always depends on, yes, budget, but also like, does the person want to take this and run with it? Is this a DIY? We're going to come up with the plan together. We're going to make sure it's customized to their capacity. So if they're a solopreneur, if they only have 2 people on their team, if it's just them and a VA or just them and a business partner, right? So we're going to customize it based on their capacity and they're going to execute it. Or they want a done with you. They want me to sort of collaborate, be a thought partner, and we're going to execute the plan together. So we're going to actually work on the roadmap and execute the plan together. And then the other option is I have a big company and I have big vision. There are things and projects and other things I really want to focus on. I want you to do this for me. So I want you to sit with me, analyze the problem, diagnose the problem, and then I want you to either do it for me or work with my team and do it with them so that I can stay on the forefront of the business. So those are the 3 levels I would say where I support business owners. But as you can tell, it always starts with a conversation. Me and the client are going to talk about what works best for them.
Great. Yes, I love that. And the roadmap coach, how did you come up with that name?
You know, it's funny. The name was given to me. Initially, someone wanted to call me the formula coach, but I really didn't like the ring of it. And so I sort of was looking for synonymous words that would work well with formula. But in other words, what they were trying to say to me is I have a framework. And it's a framework that has worked since day 1 of my career. I have used the same framework. And it's honestly, it's not a secret framework. It's road mapping is literally starting with the end goal and then creating the roadmap that's going to get you there. That's roadmap coaching. That in essence is the concept, right? Now, how we do that obviously is specific and customized to my clients. And there's, a bit more details in terms of the framework itself. But in essence, that's the idea, right? Is that I have a very specific way in which I work with people. I want to first identify, where are we trying to get to? You don't get in a car and start driving, right? You got to put the address in the GPS and then you'll know where to go. That's kind of my framework, my mentality.
Let's pause for a moment to hear from our sponsors. You've built a name for yourself through hard work and dedication, but does managing the business side feel like a distraction from your true passion? Are you dealing with unmanaged finances? CME Accounting LLC is here to help. We specialize in organizing your financial records, allowing you to focus on what you do best. With organized books, you'll have more time for what inspires you. Whether that's expanding your influence, building relationships, or simply enjoying life. Don't let unmanaged finances hold you back. Reach out to CME Accounting LLC today and let us help you thrive. Visit our website www.cmeaccountingllc.com or email us at admin@cmeaccountingllc.com. All right, let's jump back into our conversation. Okay, great. And once you decided to start this particular business, what were the steps that you took to actually make that possible? Like for somebody maybe looking to do something similar to what you're doing now, it would be great for them to hear how that came about.
I'll keep in mind also, I think there's more than one way, right, to get to this destination. The first thing I did is I got certified as a coach. I wanted to create a framework. Like I knew that I had a specific approach to how I solved problems. I hadn't translated that into a framework. And so I wanted to get certified as a coach because a lot of the really great sort of coach certification programs will teach you that. How to really drill down on your niche, but more importantly, how to operationalize your framework. Like what is the thing that you're going to be known for? How will you solve those problems, right? And that then is your framework. I wanted to formalize my framework. And that's really the first thing I did was I took a certification class. Now, if you already have a framework, right, you can certainly skip that step. And the very first thing that you need to do is tell your friends and family. Low-hanging fruit. I was just talking to someone recently who just launched a company and they were having me look at their website, just kind of like proofreading it, looking for, grammatical mistakes but also like layout, right? Display layout. And I was like, okay, so what's the go-to-market plan? Like, who are you going to tell first? And she's like, well, I don't have a mailing list. So I'm actually not sure. And I was like, but you do have a mailing list. Pull out your phone. All those people, mailing list. Look at your LinkedIn. Anyone that you've spoken to or liked their post or they liked your post, any interaction in the last 30 days, mailing list. And I don't mean to throw people's email addresses and start bombarding them with sales emails. That's not what I mean. I mean, there are people that you can tell your story to, that you can announce this venture to, that will be excited and happy for you and likely want to know more. So that's what I mean, right? So start with your network. So I did that. I told everybody that I knew. I literally went through my phone, went through my LinkedIn, went through my IG, and anybody that I had interacted with in the last 30 days, I let them know, hey, I'm doing this amazing thing. I'd love to tell you more about it. Here's a Calendly link, 30 minutes, let's chat. And I remember the first 3 months, I had on average 7 to 8 discovery calls a week. None of them ended up being my clients, but that wasn't the point. I just wanted to tell as many people about my business as possible.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned that because I think I know from experience, sometimes it feels like you get shy about telling people. I don't know, but I feel like that's good practice. It's good. Those people know people, they broaden the network. And who cares more about you than the people you already know?
They're going to be your biggest cheerleaders, right? And again, none of them I signed on as clients, but I've gotten clients from them, right? Over the years. And so I think that's what's important. There's going to be a shyness because again, we're not taught to do this. We're not taught, not even how, I can tell you how, but we're not taught that we need to do this. We're not taught that this is part of the process. This feels like a nice to have. Like picking up your phone and reaching out to your network. I can't tell you how like rudimentary that is, right? From a standpoint of starting a business, more than 50% of business owners don't do it. They don't launch their business that way. Why? That's easy low-hanging fruit, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's, and I say do it shy. There's no practice of getting unshy, right? I think 2 years down the line, am I less shy about reaching out to people? I don't think so. I think there's still but I'm going to do it anyway. That's the promise I make to myself, right? Is that I will let you be shy. I will give you the space to be shy, but you're going to have to do it anyway.
Yeah. So tell us how you got that first client after all.
About a year ago, I decided to really drill down on my target audience. And I consider sort of that as a first client because they were the first client in this specific phase of the business that I'm in. But my very first client in terms of coaching was actually a career pivoter. This was someone who was looking to do something I've done 3 times. They were looking to pivot careers and they were looking for a coach to kind of walk them through that process, how to network online on LinkedIn, how to sort of announce the career pivot, what would their resume look like, how would they parlay their skills into a job interview. That was through a referral. That's how I got my first client. So again, telling a fellow coach, I was actually reluctant because I'm thinking they're going to think I'm their competitor. They're right. Like, I don't know if they're going to like be receptive to me starting this business. Announced that I started the business. 6 months later, I got a referral. And really because people who are in the same business as you that you view as competitors are actually your best collaborators. Best collaborators.
I love so much that you say that. It is so true. It's something that takes a while to learn.
It is.
But it is so true.
Best collaborators, you know, and she sent me my first client.
It depends on the other person. Well, I was just saying it depends on the other person. They have to be receptive too, though. But when it works, it really works.
It really works. And a very close second to that, so both clients came in at the same time. Again, someone in my network told them I was, you know, coaching, and specifically I wanted to coach women. Didn't specify women in business, women in leadership positions. Didn't specify. I want to coach women. And she said, oh, I actually am about to graduate from this women-only program that Goldman Sachs has funded. It's happening at the Brooklyn Public Library. Would you like to come to the graduation? Went to the graduation. The person who was leading the program, she hired me as a facilitator for their program from my network.
I love it. And I'm just wondering, going back a little bit further, is there anything in your childhood you think that brought you to this particular part of your journey?
I think serial entrepreneurs are born. I don't know that there's something that happens in your life. Maybe, you know, but my parents aren't entrepreneurs. You know, my father, yes, has a few businesses, but he was a doctor for most of his life. He's retired now. And my mom, same. She was a teacher and a nurse for her entire career. Like, they had careers. They didn't, you know, they weren't necessarily, they were dabbling in business as side hustles, but they were never going to quit their full-time job, you know, their careers to go into business. So I didn't necessarily have it growing up, but I think I was just born this way. It's tough to say. I've met other serial entrepreneurs, right? And I'm like, oh, you were definitely born this way. Like, there was something about you since you were young, right? That you wanted to lead others. You wanted to change the world. You wanted to impact others in a big way. You're social. You're not shy about talking to strangers. And well, I wouldn't say you're not shy. I'm definitely shy about talking to strangers, but like, you're willing to do it. There's a bit of an outgoing aspect that you're able to turn on, right? When it comes to being social. So I think it was just always there, honestly.
Okay, thank you. So when we talk about building your business, I know we talked about you being very good at networking. So can you maybe tell us a little bit about what that's like for you, and maybe how you've built your team, whether it's a team that you work with within your firm, just what team means for you in general?
Yeah, absolutely. So we just had this conversation about competitors, right? My team includes my competitors because they're the ones I'm currently collaborating with. There are a few events, trainings, webinars, products that I'm putting out with other coaches who are in similar spaces. And so I think that my team is something that I've developed over time, and it's also not static. It changes because my business is changing, right? My needs as a person and as a business owner change. And so as they change, the team has to reflect that change. And so I think for any company, whether you're talking about a team full-time, whether you're talking about consultants, whether you're talking about part-time employees, your team should sort of move with you, right? And I think sometimes it's hard when companies have sort of a change in vision or a change in branding, and they have employees, you know, sometimes struggle with having to change or shift positions. That's why change management is extremely important. And so I do think that the way that I build teams, the way that I view building a team is that you do that over time and it iterates. It's not static, right? And it should meet the needs of your business in that point in time. Currently, I'm a solopreneur, but I do have a VA. I have, again, collaborators and consultants that I work with on a per project basis. What was your first question before that? Sorry.
Oh, it was about networking, what that looks like for
Oh,
you.
yeah, yeah. What does networking look like for me? Networking is about building social equity for me, right? So it can't all be about me talking about myself. Podcasts are probably the only platform where I feel comfortable just solely talking about myself and not asking someone else about what's happening with them in their lives. I'm naturally curious about other people and what's happening in their lives, right? And I think that if you struggle with caring about other people's stuff, right? And I say that lightly, but we all know those people who will call you when they need an introduction, who will call you when they need a referral, who will call you, when they need something from you, but won't necessarily return the favor. How likely are you to keep helping that person? Not as likely, right? So I kind of feel like networking is about building social equity. It's a give and take. It's about, as Brene Brown says, putting marbles in the other person's jar and vice versa.
Okay, yeah, I concur. Talking about teams, so in terms of like doing things like marketing, accounting, I am an accountant just for full transparency. So I always like to know how people handle that. So we talk about the team changes as your business change. So how do you know when to bring somebody, like when it comes to accounting or marketing or any other thing that you're doing right now where you brought somebody in? I know you mentioned you had a VA. Like when do you make those decisions?
You make the decisions when your business starts to grow, right? But I think accounting, money decisions are much different than like marketing decisions, right? Like you need to get an accountant as soon as money starts coming in. Like figure out at what level and at what need, right? Do you need to meet with an accountant every single week? Probably not. Every single month? Maybe not in the beginning of your business, right? But you should absolutely have someone look at your numbers, understand what you're doing from an accounting standpoint, right? And at the very least, do that twice a year. Do it when you're filing for your taxes, do it 6 months later. That's my recommendation for someone who is starting in the business. And I do have an accountant now, although I'm looking to change my accountant, as we know. And I'm also a finance person in my full-time job. So I'm very close to numbers, right? I don't necessarily need to outsource that piece. But again, once you start to experience enough revenue where you're now able to take some of that and reinvest it back in the business, get a finance person. And I don't mean like hire a CFO. I mean like get like a business coach, someone like myself who has experience in finance, who can help you put a budget together, because that part is really important. Here's what budgets do, by the way. It helps you make better data-driven decisions. It's not about like counting every penny every month to make sure you don't exceed your budget. Yes, that's part of it. But it also says, listen, there's this conference I want to go to at the end of the year next year that I think is going to be a really great investment for this business, but I can't quite afford it right now. So you have to decide, what is your runway? How many clients do you need to bring in? Where do you need to get the revenue in order to pay for the ticket to go to that conference? Those are the types of decisions your budget allows you to make.
Yeah, and the thing about that, once you've thought through that, put that on paper, something just opens up. Like it's like, oh my gosh, okay, it's become a lot clearer now, and I can do this.
That's exactly right. And
Yeah.
at the same time, I kind of feel like running a business without a budget is running a business without a plan. I've done it. I've raised $1.3 billion in investment money and I didn't have a budget. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but I've done it because business owners do it all the time. You're closing deals, you're signing contracts, you're busy. Being booked and busy is a great thing. It's a blessing. But oftentimes that means your back end is unsupervised.
Yeah, and that brings us back to earlier when you mentioned systems. And then when we talked about having an accountant just now, I was thinking too, even before you start the business, you could start having those conversations because systems you can already put in place before things get crazy, before things get hectic. That's something we learn sometimes later on, but we can tell people who are coming after us, systems avoids a lot of issues. So when you meet with a coach, with an accountant, with those people even beforehand. And like you said, it depends on the need at the time. It doesn't have to be all you meeting with that person every week, but just to have that initial conversation and talk about what can be put in place now. And maybe that person can even be with you as you grow. It will make your life so much easier.
It really would. It really would. And, I think there's a fear of the expense, of course. But again, if you create a budget for yourself, for your business, you know how much money you have to set aside and you can go to an accountant and say, listen, this is all I have. What can you offer me with this amount? Can we meet once a year for this amount? Can we meet twice a year for this amount, right? People will work with you, especially if listen, this is how much I have to spend, right? They know that you're not trying to get something for free, that you're not wasting their time, that you have money to spend, and that, they might be willing to work with you within that amount of money. Something that you just said, when I took the certification course for coaching, one of the things I appreciated about this class is they gave you a checklist of all the systems you need to have in place before you get started. I really appreciated that. Some of it was kind of obvious because it's like, how are you going to start a business and you don't have a sample contract, right? Like, how are you going to sign on your first client?
Some people do it.
I know. That's the crazy part. And so it was great to get sort of, and it was simple. It wasn't like hire a lawyer, right? It was like simple things, simple resources of like, here's what you want to start with. You can build from there, but here's what you want to start with. And an accountant 100% was on that list.
Great. I love it. So, oh my gosh, we've talked about how you started. We've talked about, you continuing to build. But let's just focus a little bit on blossoming right now. So if you can tell us here what success means to you. I know you mentioned impact earlier. I'm sure that it factors in there. But overall, what does success mean to you?
As you said, it's impact and it's freedom. I know a lot of people will say financial freedom. For me, it's more than that. It's what financial freedom allows me to have. Freedom with my time, freedom to pick my daughter up from school every day, the freedom to be home at night and read her story before she goes to sleep. It's that freedom, that flexibility that working for someone else may not allow you. It's freedom in a sense of self. And what I mean by that is I'm a Black woman in America. So I've had to prove my worth and prove my value to my employer multiple times throughout my career, right? But the number one person I never have to prove anything to is myself. I don't have to convince me that I'm good enough. I don't have to convince me that I'm the right person for the job, right? There's freedom in that. There's freedom in not having to do that, not having to constantly make space for yourself, sort of validate your value. So yeah, freedom is a big word, but it means more than just people. Again, I say freedom and sometimes people think financial freedom, but it's a lot more than that. The financial freedom is part of it, but it's also freedom in these other aspects as well.
Yeah, so thanks so much for sharing all of this with us. As we move into this closeout segment, would you be able to share 3 practical tips that you would like to let us know about, especially persons who are looking to start business now or people who are already in business but they could use a little bit of encouragement?
Yes, absolutely. And I live and die by these 3 principles. I personally practice these 3 things in my life and my business. Number 1, have a plan. When you have big goals, like, yes, it takes ideation. It takes to dream about it. It takes to chew on it for a little bit, but don't chew on it for too long. Make a plan, right? If there's a big project that you're trying to accomplish in your business, or you just want to launch a business in the first place, let's put a plan together. Have a plan, right? That's the first part. Don't do anything big without a plan. Have a plan. Number 2, ask for help. We're not good at asking for help. Sometimes we don't even know who to ask, right? At times it's this also just like fear of being told no. Let them tell you no. Ask for help. Don't say no to yourself before you even get the opportunity to ask. Just ask for help. Don't do it by yourself. There's enough of us trying to do it, and I'm telling you, it doesn't work. I'm telling you from experience of having burnt out. It doesn't work. Ask for help. And then the last one is really important. No matter what stage you are in life, in your business, like, you don't know it all. You don't know it all. Like, I get so inspired and excited when I meet someone that like I'm fangirling over, right? It could be like an IG celebrity that I've followed for a really long time. I really admire their work. I love what they talk about. They're clearly very, well-versed in the work that they do, right? And then I meet them and they become a student. You can tell they're still learning. They're curious. They ask questions, show up as the person in the room, right? And I think what that allows you to do is truly master your craft, because mastering your craft is a journey. It's not a destination, right? Most people who are successful don't arrive at the master and say, I've mastered my craft. Someone like Oprah, who has reached sort of pinnacle of her career multiple times, who has breaking records, is still a student. Oprah is someone who prioritizes learning. She is someone who is still very curious about other people, about what they do, about learning how to do something new, picking up a new trade. When she canceled her show, Lord knows how many decades ago, she tried to go into podcasting. It didn't work. Who would have thought that Oprah would fail at podcasting, right? But what came out of that was her, I forget the name of the show, but it started off only on Sundays on the OWN network, where she would sit and interview someone. It's a podcast mixed with her talk show in one. And then eventually a lot of other people started doing it, where they would record like what we're doing now. They would have an actual video recording of their podcast, right? So that there's a podcast that you can listen to, but also you can watch two people interact and have an interview. Right. And so it's about, creativity and innovation and being able to reinvent yourself. It comes from learning. So, if you're the type of person who's like, I know it, I'm at the pinnacle of my career, I've got it, then you're going to sort of rob yourself of the opportunity to learn and to innovate. Right. And it also, I think, robs you of the opportunity to be adaptable and resilient, because the world does change. Things change. New things get, thrown at us that we have to learn. I remember when ChatGPT came out, I was like, oh no, I'm not using that. And it's such an important tool in my business now, right? And so you have to keep an open mind and constantly be a student. So that's my third. Have a plan, ask for help, keep learning.
The help that they need, you provide, and to continually be a student. And I feel like even when you're coaching, you're learning from your students as much as they're learning from you. So it's a really nice relationship to have. So I definitely appreciate that. Thanks so much for sharing that with us. And so tell us, how can listeners reach you?
Yeah, so you can reach me by email, Christina@theroadmapcoach.com. If you want to learn more about my work, feel free to go on my website, www.theroadmapcoach.com. I'm also on Instagram. More of my Instagram stuff is vibe content. I love to just show my personality, my true self. That's where you'll get most of the jokes. So that's @theroadmapcoach is my IG handle. And then, of course, I'm on LinkedIn under Christina Bryan. So you'll see a lot more of my professional content on there, but you can certainly connect with me on any of those things. I definitely recommend, if you are in business or you're thinking about going into business, go on my website, sign up for the business newsletter. There are a ton of resources that I send, most of them free, invites to events, that are happening for business owners. I'm all about not gatekeeping and sharing with my network. So if you're a business owner or you're aspiring to be a business owner, sign up for my mailing list. I don't send like a lot of these sales mailing lists that you'll get almost on a daily basis. I'm sending you resources and invitations to events that only my network have access to. So definitely worth the while.
Okay. Thanks so much for sharing that with us. And we talked about networking, and at the beginning, I mentioned that I attended an event that you put together. So I just want to put here that I hope you do more of those. And then if people are on your newsletter, maybe they'll get that information there too. But I'm just saying, I had such a wonderful time. I met such amazing people that I'm looking forward to the next one. So I'm keeping an eye out for that.
And the invitation for these events only go out to my network. I do not post them on social. I do not post it on LinkedIn or Instagram. It's a direct invitation to my network. I would definitely recommend signing up for the Business Owner Network.
Please do that. You do not want to miss it. I'm telling you. All right. Thank you so much, Christina. I really appreciate you spending time with us today. We learned a lot, and we hope to have you on again.
Thank you for having me, Clarita. This was so much fun. I do want to do this again for sure.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.
A quick note before we wrap up. The insights and experiences shared by our guests are their own. We love creating space for real conversations about business and growth, and everyone's journey is unique. Therefore, this podcast is for informational and inspirational purposes only. It is not meant to replace legal, financial, or other professional advice. So, we encourage you to take what's useful, do your own due diligence, and build what works best for you.
Thanks for listening to Begin, Build, Blossom Your Business Journey. We hope today's conversation gave you the insights and inspiration you need to move forward on your own path. Don't forget to subscribe or follow wherever you get your podcast so you never miss an episode. Do you have feedback? We'd love to hear from you at podcast@cmeaccountingllc.com. Join us again next week for a new episode.